Rumors are dangerous things.
Right.
You don't want that kind of thing filtering
You want
through
to
the
confirm it?
coffee. It may or may not be.
You got to do a lot of due diligence on these things. It could have only been 9 holes.
That's
Not
true.
so great.
Taking a step down and seeing what is that like.
Well, for me, it was taking a step up.
Welcome to Get Real Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
This is great.
And I just said incredible.
We're done,
Welcome
right?
to the Get Real Estate Podcast.
Yes.
But yeah, no, what we'd like to do here is, real estate's boring, so we like to get interesting stories from some interesting people. Good to have you.
Are they coming today?
Yeah, they are. So they're out here. So
Perfect. Yeah. Get the interesting people. Bring it in.
The synergy group. There's so much synergy here. I'm very impressed. I don't even know this story. How long have y'all known each other? How'd you get connected? How'd it come together?
Well, let's see. Known each other, that really is more on when I started in real estate, because Scott started before me. You started in
05?
05, and I started in fall of 2011.
Okay.
So graduated Miami, Ohio, came back to the area, was not going to do grad school or unpaid internships for architecture.
Yeah.
Got connected with the group that Scott was already with, so that would be 2011 to now, so 12 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, a lot of shared hobbies, sports, like things we've played growing up, and so it's just naturally had a lot in common, but also from a work ethic perspective and how we approach things in business and all that just kind of aligned.
Yeah.
And when we started discussing the idea of starting a team, going to Compass or whatever, it just made all the sense in the world.
It really did.
Where were
make
you
all
guys
the
before
sense.
Compass?
We were Long and Foster before.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing, which I've said this to Scott in various capacities, but when we decided to partnership and then move over to Compass, each of us had always been approached at different times by the brokerages, and you're just out there kind of feeling what's in the marketplace. But I think one thing outside of the core principles he talked about that also really helps the partnership is, I think you're 8 years older than I am, or 9, but our family dynamic.
But you wouldn't look
looks
it. You wouldn't
Yeah,
look it.
exactly.
Yeah, you wouldn't look it.
Yeah, well, it helps
Yeah.
that I'm only 20. Our family dynamic and kids are very close in age, right? So as far as progress as to where you are in life and what you're prioritizing, there's never a doubt of what each person has to do.
You're same age.
And that is critical to I have had conversations with people who partnered and then it doesn't work out, and it's those big life things, even after, if you've got business principles aligned, that interfere because people just have different objectives if they're at different stages in life.
Point. I am in the Cub Scouts, my kids are, and unfortunately I realized this year they are all 10 years younger than me, the fathers with the kids that are this age. Now, luckily with great genetics and really good hair and working out, I'm able to fit it. No, but it's weird, out of nowhere, I'm oh my God, I'm 45, I'm the old guy, I'm the old dad. And just like that. Happened so quick, I didn't even recognize it.
You know what? You're not, though. The reality is you're not.
Right. It's one of those things where, as you build relationship as the principals, you also just have this inherent camaraderie that just exists and just makes a very strong bond where you need that.
One of us walks into the office, the other person's there, and he just walks in, he has this look on the face kids, and you go, yeah, got it.
You get it. You
got
get it right away.
You don't even have to say anything. I'm there, you're there, it's all good.
Maybe throw a word bust up. Just to give
Exactly.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I like that. You talked about hobbies, kind of our impromptu hobby we're doing this afternoon where we're going golfing.
Indeed, yes.
By the way, you guys are really good golfers. I heard rumor on the street, might have it at 74 and a 75 in the last round you guys played together.
Rumors are dangerous things.
Right.
You don't want that kind of thing filtering through
want to
the
confirm it?
coffee. It may or may not be.
You got to do a lot of due diligence on these things. It could have only been 9 holes.
That's
not so great.
One might say that's when you stop playing golf. When you shoot around like that, you say, okay, did it, done.
On that note,
box it up.
I also heard you may have put away your clubs for the winter and cleaned them because you're that's the best it's going to get this year. And now you're being forced to go play this afternoon.
Forced is a good way to put it for all the people out there. I am being forced to do this. But you know what they say? networking doesn't network itself, right? So you got to get out and you got to get it done.
That's great.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, you guys are hard to talk to. Thanks for welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
You know what's funny? So golf is one of these things. Like, I think a lot of the business that Scott and I have grown, outside of just like make sure the customer service is first and all the things that we know are like, you must do these things to create a repeat referral business. I have become such a believer in investing the time in the hobbies and other things that you like. Yeah. And then naturally business comes up, particularly real estate, because everybody wants to own it, owns it, wants to know about it. Have seen those types of things then help add to what we do.
You're a better version of yourself. You're doing stuff you like doing.
Yes.
So I mean, look, today I'm gonna have more fun with you guys than I would if I was at a I don't know, or some kind of like. The worst is like the conferences where you got your 10 by 10 table, and you're like, I don't want to work with this title guy. Like, he's the worst, but maybe I'll make you laugh a little today, and you never know. So you're really onto something there.
It's something that I also encourage agents who are getting into the business, or even agents who have been in the business, but they want to like add to what they're doing. Enjoy these other opportunities and look at them as opportunities, not to sit there and elevator pitch every single person, because then you're just annoying, right? Yeah. But these things will naturally come up, and so the more you're just with the people, the more that it becomes a reality.
Look, I think part of it is, it's not whether it's a sport or anything else, whether it's you like to hike or whatever it is. I think being in real estate, finding balance is almost impossible. Particularly being a parent who is in real estate, it's really hard. You have to make sacrifices. It's just part of the business. But finding ways to feed yourself from a spiritual, soulful kind of way, whether it's like, for me, sometimes like getting out the golf course is that. Sometimes it's going by myself and hiking in Shenandoah or whatever those things are. Once you start to do that, you find people who are doing the same things. You're connected in that way. You're connected in a way, it's like, you have a connection to whatever that thing is, and that connection builds upon itself. Having that is like crucial. You have to have that. Yeah. So like if you don't have that and you're out there, like find the thing, or everyone has it. It's just they lose it, and you got to go out and rekindle the thing because it's really important.
My favorite story that aligns with what we're talking about is I was playing golf at Manor, and in joining there, we have no family connection, no history of clubs, any of that. I started jumping on random tee times and just being with the people, right? Summer.
Just being one with the people.
Just being with the people, right?
Just taking a step down and seeing what is that like.
Well, for me, it was taking a step up. But anyways, about a year and a half ago, I was playing in the summer and happened to be in front of a group. They asked me, do you want to join the three of us because you're just playing in front? Okay, great, that sounds good. We start talking. At that point, I think Scott and I were at maybe 50 or 60 million in like June. We were really tracking at a hot pace. Leave the round, expect nothing of it. Fast forward 7 months to spring the next year, and I get a call from this guy, Chris, who says, hey, I played golf with you this past summer at Manor. It was great talking to you about business. You mentioned that just you and your partner were at like 60 million for the year. You're clearly doing something right. Yeah. I just put a contract on a house in Bradenton, Florida. I need to put my house on the market. Yeah. Immediately, can you come over?
All right, what have we learned here? You need to make sure he's out golfing more. Okay? Right? Done. And that is so true. So I can only think of one time I golfed by myself. And I went out and I had earphones on, I was listening to a podcast. Randomly, I'm with the CEO of Navy Fed. Because he and I playing together.
That's great.
And he's like, yeah, we have a title joint venture. We actually have one with Champion, which, they have their own thing. But I hung out with them all day. And, there was a relationship there. So think about how ridiculous that is, right? It'd be so hard, but I got to know the guy. You get to know that guy. If they like you, they're going to want to work with people they like, right?
Definitely. I think a big component of this whole mindset and thinking is also just being being curious, right? Like not being so self-invested that you're not willing to talk to someone else. And look, there are going to be people where, whether it's on the golf course, in a social setting, where some people are more closed, and that's okay. You don't need to dig that hole. And then other people, if you are curious, then they're suddenly curious about what you do. And, you can tell if it's
I agree. And like, in your industry, you hear sphere a lot. So let's say you're playing with someone, they're not selling a house, but, it was great meeting you. My brother's selling a house or my whatever. Like, you never know how far that can go. I heard once about this guy who was a top wealth manager in the area. And the only thing he did was go to the golf course every day and just golf with someone new. And that was it. And he was one of the, and so like, there really is something there. I know golf sometimes gets shit because it's like, there's not work. And I completely disagree with that. When we started the company, there was 450 title companies in the area. It's hard to get to know people, as like I said, at a conference, but it's not hard on the golf course. I will give Compass a lot of credit for, we work with a lot of Compass people. They have fun people. They have good people, they have fun people, they've got a good culture. That was one thing I always noticed when I was looking from afar at Compass. Great branding, cool people, and that matters. And I've heard great things from the retreat, like just people said it was so much fun and all that kind of stuff.
I've been to lots of retreats for different companies, and whether it's the Buffinis or we used to do Howard Brenton, and we did a bunch of them. The Compass retreat, one of the reasons we joined Compass is because of the quality agents that are there, and this isn't a Compass thing, it's more of you get to a level where the conversations you're having are very high level. You're weeding out all the noise of like transactional. You're talking about, like, we have a national networking team that we put together of agents from across the country, and when we go to this conference, we all get together for dinner, and we talk about things that are like very like, okay, I'm growing my business and here's this little bottleneck I'm running into, and it's like the nuances of like, once you get to a certain level, how do you attack that thing? How do you address that? How are we here as a resource for each other? So it's like, not only does Compass do that really well, but the agents within that do it really well. And there's a philosophy of like really like kind of open book sharing, where like even agents in our office, they come into us like all the time. They're like, hey, how do you do that? Or what are you doing with this? And we're like, this is how you do it. And the same thing on the other side. I don't think you necessarily get that from a lot of brokerages.
I think that makes a lot of sense. You also, the industry of real estate agents, the one thing I've noticed is they really share a lot more than other industries. Title companies don't like each other.
I think it just speaks to what Scott was touching on, in that the entry point to be a part of Compass has this minimum standard that's high for the industry as an average. And because of that, people have more of the abundance mindset. There's not this scarcity of, well, if I share how I'm doing agent retention on my team and how I'm, trying to cater to that, or how I'm trying to bring new people in, they're not worried that sharing with you is going to cut out 5% of their business. If anything, they're going to share with you, and then you may have feedback based on your own experience or based on hearing from someone else of that same thing, and then suddenly they've more likely added to their bottom line or kept their bottom line in the same spot, but they're going to be able to do it more efficiently.
And at the end of the day, what it comes down to is you can't worry about what anybody else is doing. All you can focus on is, what am I doing? Am I doing it well enough? Am I providing that quality to my clients? Because I think we're in an environment right now where we're seeing flight to quality. I think you're going to continue to see that flight to quality into next year. And like, I believe we have a quality broker, but we also have a really quality team. We've built our systems out in a way that like we take care of our buyers and sellers and our investors and everything like that. And so like, that's something that, we talked before the podcast about, like, what are we up to? And we're like, we're doing a lot of like serious like business planning on like, how do we achieve these next milestones for the business, where we're really, and it's all about, how do we make the experience better? Everything we do is, let's start at how do we make the experience better, and then back engineer and go, this is how we do it.
I love it.
And so that's why like we're not concerned, because like this is how you do it. Like even these conferences, you go to them, and agents who've been doing this even 7-8 years, you can see them in the room and they're like, how am I going to implement this? And most don't. They come back from these things, they think they're excited, they sit down, and then it's gone. And it's just like, if you can do 2 or 3 of these things and you're doing that kind of stuff, who cares about helping other people, right?
I think the other thing, and I was just sort of making this connection in my head, that the standards of having joined Compass, where that has really translated into our own business. And I think we probably would have done this anyway, but it just, that sort of mindset that you're constantly surrounded by is in growing our team. I mean, we're looking to add agents, but I tell you, in the last 6 months, 12 months even, we've only even given the opportunity to less than a handful of people, and we've probably interviewed 20 different people.
Oh, wow.
Because similar to people joining Compass, people joining Synergy Group, we want to make sure that there's a very upfront alignment of standards, of practice, cohesive culture, right? Because there's nothing worse than bringing people in, investing, and then there's suddenly just such a break in...
Which we've done.
Sure.
Everyone makes
And
that.
we've experienced
Just growth pains.
Right.
And you think of the time you put into training and all that stuff, and we've been trying to learn over the years, we used to hire very fast, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if we can get more people on our team to interview people and just make sure they're a culture fit, like that, it just really truly matters. And back in the day, it was just like we'd have a couple people interview and that was it. So that's one thing I think I agree with you on. Time's valuable. On the time front, I also like to give credit to some real estate agents. First of all, the agents are under attack, right? Number one, everyone's, they make too much money, right? But knowing being in the industry now for a while, man, you guys are always working. I don't think that's something you guys get enough credit for, is just how much you guys are working.
And to that point, the amount of work is always there, especially if you want to do the business at a high level. But I think it gets lost on a lot of people that none of that income is guaranteed.
Yeah, that's true.
Ever.
Yeah,
we have no base. There is none of that.
Yeah.
Our base, thankfully, because we've been in the industry for a while, and we have a good, Rolodex of great clients who come back to us or refer people to us. But at the end of the day, we could work with a buyer for 6 months and get paid nothing. And that is a big loss as far as time invested,
that's a really good point.
communication.
I was just talking to someone on the way in today, and it was like, when you have kids and you have bills, it's a ballsy move to be in a commission-only industry.
There's a lot of people who can't do it. It's a personality type to even make that jump to say, I'm going to take a chance at going 100% commission, knowing I have these financial obligations. And it's not just the financial obligations personally, it's the business obligations. We've done a lot of our business plan. It's like, okay, we know we're spending this amount next year, and we have this much coming in, right? When you started this a couple months ago, you're like, we have zero income and we have these expenses. This looks great, right? But you do that because you have a confidence, you know that your network is there, you know the marketing and things that you do, so you know that part will kind of fulfill itself. And that's one of the, I think, advantages too of having a team like that, is we can make that commitment to the marketing or doing some of those things, even in a down market, which we're kind of in now, right? Volume's down and things like that. But that's almost where you got to double down and say, this is where we really kind of invest, bring in some good agents, that sort of thing.
I also think, and this kind of wraps back to making sure that people are the right culture fit. As we've grown the team, added staff, brought on more agents, I think there's a real satisfaction at knowing you are responsible for helping create income for other people, and it's worth it because they're helping you grow also, right? And so yes, you hit January 1 and you're like, we're starting at zero, and I know how much staff is going to cost this year, but that's just the numbers on the page. When you're in the office and you're talking to Kristen, who's been with us now, and she's amazing, you just know there's that inherent responsibility to make sure that person is taken care of. And then everything else falls in line as long as you're doing the right things daily.
I'll tell Kristen, by the way. Hey, Kristen, miss you.
That's a understated mindset shift of getting to that point. I'm just recently kind of getting to the point where it's always been when we do transactions for clients, it's not about buying or selling a house. It's about building wealth. It's always been about putting them in a better financial position for them and their families over time. That is the goal, right? And I started hosting this thing called the Cash Flow Breakfast Club in Arlington. We've got a really good group. We've been doing 4 or 5 sessions in, and it's not really a plug for that necessarily, but to say like the reason I'm doing it with another agent is because we're really trying to show people who are trying to get into investing how to build wealth, how to improve their lives, how to get their time back, which I'm still working on myself. But now that we've done this for 4 or 5 sessions, you do the first one, it's like it's a grind and the preparing, it's at night and it's late. And then at the end of it, you have this like endorphin rush of like, I actually connected with some people and they're excited and they want to do this. And like, that was like, wow, like meaningful. And every one of these things we've done has gotten more interactive and you're getting people coming back and people are like, hey, I'm doing it. I put the place under contract. And it's like really cool to see people taking the risk, calculated risk, how to do it, and being that like a little bit of like in a mentor role is like really fun. And it's like I'm looking forward to like as we go into next year, how that grows, and not only in the brokerage side, but in that capacity is just kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like you were saying, tough market, investing in things that are a little different, creating relationships. You guys are doing a good job at always coming up with those things. It was funny when we started this, people are like, well, why would we do it? There's 4 million podcasts. It's like, if the only reason we're doing it is I get to like hang out with people I like working with and learn something about them. And every single podcast so far, I've learned a ton about people who I've known for a long time of stuff that I never even knew. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but it's like, oh, this is fun for me. And we get to hang out. And I'm sorry I'm making you golf this afternoon. Sorry, Kristen, by the way, I apologize about that.
We're not actually golfing, Kristen, in case you see this.
But it's like, it goes back to like you were saying earlier, doing fun things you like, it always ends up working out and creating those
another thing to Scott's point about like the Breakfast Club and just like our business in general, parenting. One thing that I saw recently that resonated so quickly, which really had to do with parenting, but then it makes sense in a business application. If you feel parenting is hard, it's because you're probably a good parent and you care about your kids. Because if it wasn't hard and you didn't, like, you wouldn't care and it would just be laissez-faire. So to my point, and then looking at that,
French?
Oh my God. French, very difficult.
Oh, here we go.
Just a little something.
Glad he asked me to say that just so he could do that, by the way.
In that regard, we are always our own worst critics about doing things, which then leads to why we are having the success that we're having.
Everything I do, I go, could have been better. And I got to like get away from that a little bit.
It's a good quality.
Because it's a good quality, but it also like
until it's
that's
an
how you go
addiction.
crazy. That's also causes psychological problems.
Yeah, you could chase that carrot for a long time.
Chase that dragon.
That's why golf is the never-ending sport you'll always like.
It's probably why the three of us want to play it so bad.
Exactly, right? So another thing we like about this podcast is, I was saying earlier, we always learn something kind of ridiculous, something I wouldn't know. Just give me like a story out on the job, some ridiculous stuff that's happened. I had Kevin Lincoln here not too long ago. There was some stuff he told me, quite remarkable.
That's probably the worst guy to have to follow with wild stories.
It's like wholesaling.
Yes,
right?
yes.
During the whole foreclosure, and I think I actually got into market in 2004, because I had a couple years where it was insane, and then I was there for the Great Recession when things plummeted and we had foreclosure, which represented like 40% of the market. I remember showing people houses, and there was a lot of that like multi-families in a house thing going on, and like you'd walk into the house and every door in the house was locked, sort of thing. You couldn't get in, and it was super sketchy. I mean, and so there were times where I would walk in with my clients and they're shooting me the look like, let's get out of here, right?
Sure.
But you press on, you're like, this is a good deal, let's take a look around, you knock on the doors, and you never knew what you were going to get behind those doors. And there were times where we would open the doors and there were drug deals happening, legit drug deals happening. There was
just because you were there to buy drugs also.
Well, no, then the drug deal happened. But like between that, like possibly prostitution happening, like
Possibly.
I don't know exactly what's going on in these rooms, but it was and it wasn't like a one-off thing. It's like it was like almost a point where like we'd go in these houses and I'd go, all right guys, we're going to go in, but let me tell you how this is going to go, right?
Yeah.
And it was like a good 2 or 3 year window where you would get that in D.C., Northern Virginia, maybe even a little more prevalent in some neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And it's just wild now to be going back to some of those same neighborhoods and showing properties, and like you've got that like PTSD.
You're like, this is weird. The most ridiculous thing happened ever.
Yes, exactly. And now the properties are 3 times the value whenever, and they're super renovated and everything else. But it's like that kind of stuff that just the everyday of it.
You mentioned DC foreclosures, and a little dangerous at time to time, and now those properties have really increased in value. The other thing we are seeing though is DC is having some issues right now, and some people are scared of certain areas. Like, what's your take on that? And is there a way to turn that around?
Oh man, how much longer do we have?
Can I use a lifeline and phone in the mayor?
Look, I total transparency. I'm losing money on an investment deal right now that a year and a half ago, actually 2 years ago when we bought the land, penciled as a grand slam.
Yeah.
And the number one reason we're losing is because of crime.
Yeah.
We've had tons of showings on it, and people are uncomfortable because the area has changed so much. And I know that's true with a lot of other developers who are launching projects as well. They're all experiencing the same problem.
Yeah.
We have to, and it's not just a DC problem, it's a US problem. They have to get this under control.
Yeah.
The crime and the checks and balances of that, and making sure the streets are safe for people to move around, is crucial. It's imperative to make sure that real estate can grow and thrive. I've got, and it's really disappointing to see this, I've got people who are like DC lifers, who've had kids there, who want to grow up in the city, who want to contribute to the growth of the city, who are now leaving. They've called me, and there's disappointment in their tone when they go, it's us, we're ready to sell 11th Street, we're ready. And you're like, oh man, that sucks. And they're moving out to suburbs. And you're seeing that. Like, DC prices are down. Montgomery County, Arlington County, where a lot of them are moving to, are still stabilized or even still seeing some appreciation. That's a big piece of that migrant flow.
Yeah, I didn't bring a broom with me.
It wasn't a window testing company.
Right? So already I'm sitting there trying to like move the glass off the sidewalk with my feet because, yes, that can happen everywhere, and that's not as bad as I think some of the things that we're really talking about. But the fact that it exists, and then someone walks to the front door of your open, I saw it.
Sure.
They're going to see it.
They're going to see it.
That is not a good look for anyone.
How much do you think this is related to, we're not charging people for crimes of, under this amount or whatever? Is that part of it in your opinion?
I think that look at just DC alone, the Harris Teeter at Potomac Yard or at Potomac Ave Metro has closed because of what do they call it? Theft is what's the terminology they use? It's leakage.
Yeah.
Right. So they call it leakage. Target was it $500 million in leakage? Some insane preposterous number. Look at the Walmart in DC that was down. Town off the Central Business District closed, and you go, okay, it's a big problem. And I know that realtors are a mouthpiece for that, and realtors have been. I know that Compass, the Capitol Hill office, put together a petition that they sent to the mayor, which I've signed, and I know a lot of people there that said, look, this is a real problem. We need to do something, and we're here to help. I want to be a part of the solution.
I think that's the thing is it just. It needs to be considered. It needs to be talked about. What solutions? How do we help you? I have these other friends in these businesses. Man, I just want to create I want to be able to survive, and I'm here to help, and I'm paying for private security, even though I'm losing money. There's some challenges out there. I just hope whether it's the government or they're open to smart people like yourselves who want to help the community.
And the thing is, and look, I wouldn't consider myself nearly smart enough or savvy enough to be in that space to have a solution to fix the problem. But I think one thing that would be good to focus on is how does your local government create opportunities for, when we look at crime, a lot of it stems from that teenage year. We don't have other things better to do, and we don't have good role models. Right. How do you create community opportunities where the decision between, joining a gang or doing bad things is less attractive than participating in productive things that then will ultimately help those people live more sustainable lives in the areas that we're serving.
I had a flip we were doing, and a lot of the flips we would buy and still will if you got an investment opportunity. Where we come in and everyone leaves everything in the house. We say, don't worry about it. We'll come in and just clear it. So we did that. We got this house. We go in there, and there's stuff everywhere, horror house kind of thing. Yeah. And this was a retired doctor from years ago. Oh, yes. And we find a human skull in one of the closets. Human skull, right? And so we name it, of course, because that's what you do. You got to name the skull. And so the skull's like bouncing around. And at one point, so what I would do is after we get like the initial stuff cleared out, there's still a lot of like furniture and utensils and like silver platters and all this kind of stuff now. So I would send an email to like my family and extended family, go, hey, go through the house. Yeah. Like if there's something you want, take it and go. So they would do that, and then they'd be like, yeah, we went by, thanks, clear stuff out. So we do that on this house. It was a single family in DC. We go back through, and I noticed the skull is gone. And I'm like,
now, are we sure? Are we talking about a real skull?
Real skull. Full real skull, human. Real.
Did you report him?
So the skull's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I got to now circle back to everybody on the list and go, did you take the skull? Who took the skull? Yes. And most of the people like call, and I'm like, did you take the, like, who takes a skull, right? Yeah. That's the norm.
Skull was already gone.
So I find the person who will go unnamed, you know who you are, who took the skull, okay? Here's how we level up this story. They took the skull and they said, I wanted to give the skull the respect it deserved, and I gave it a proper burial in my yard. I buried the skull in my backyard. Wow. So they did, okay? Fast forward, they call me and they're like, we're ready to list the house, we're moving. I forget about this skull.
I was gonna say, I thought you were thinking, hey, well, we should probably get rid of that skull.
No, I forget about the skull. So we list the house, we sell the house. The house has now sold, okay? I'm not going to mention where this house is, but there is a skull buried in this backyard right now. I said, there's going to be a dog that's going to go in that backyard like the movies, and it's going to expose the skull. And that's going to launch this whole investigation.
FBI.
Who got killed here?
Who got killed?
Who's buried here?
It's going to be a confusing story. Well, it was in
where's the
closet, and then we took it, and then we buried it.
Yeah. Like, where's the rest of the dismembered body?
Yeah, sure you did, bud. Tell it to the station.
This might be the only thing that gets you off of a murder charge.
That's right. Yes. So this is not a confession. This is
That's ridiculous.
But it's that kind of stuff that you're like, you can't make that up, right? That just happens. It's 6 degrees.
I think one of my best stories was I was showing townhouses in Reston in like 2013, 14. I was like 2 years into it, still super green in the industry. And I put a townhouse under contract. It was just a vacant property. We go there for walkthrough like an hour before settlement. And we're going through the house. Everything's going great. I get to the basement. The clients are just following me, and I'm just kind of showing them, going through the checklist. And I go to open the walkout basement sliding glass door. And right before I do that, I'm like, what's that big lump on the ground? This like big black lump. And then I look, and I'm like, that's a homeless guy in a sleeping bag. And of course, because I am just so flustered.
Well, he wasn't homeless.
Exactly. As this like equation is going through my head of putting it together, oh my God, that's a person. I just blurted it out. Oh my God, that's a homeless guy. And my clients are 2 feet behind me, and we were supposed to go to settlement.
Feeling really good about
in
the
like
house
an
about
hour.
to settle on.
Great, congrats.
Yeah.
And so I go up to the window, which was a little closer to this person's head, and I made sure that the door was locked. Knock, 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 knock. Guy like kind of out of his slumber looks at us and is just like, holy shit, there are people in this vacant house that is not supposed to be. Packs his bag, throws it over the fence, he jumps the fence, never see him again. and still went to settlement, but that had tingles up my back the entire time.
So you're at the settlement table and you're like, so, homeless guy, right? That's weird.
Just like, especially new in the industry, you're trying to practice your scripts and dialogues. There's no script or objection handler.
You see a lot. Like you said, I mean, it's a
wild
dangerous job going into some of these foreclosures, like you said, and like.
We had one where we show up at this house, listing agent standing outside. We come up, we're like, hey, let's go see the place. He's like, okay, go ahead. You're good to go. You got to go through this door, then you got to go through the garage door to get into the house. Problem is, in the garage was the most wild, rabid beast of a dog. So I look at it and I go, I don't think we're going in this property. And my client turns to me and goes, no, Scott, we got to get in this place. It's going to be a good investment opportunity. So I turn to the agent.
I'll just get rabies.
I just turn to the agent like this, and the agent's already doing this. Like, no way I'm going in this house. So he points, you could see there's a little window in the door. He points, and there was a thing of dog treats on like the mantle. And he goes, here's what you do. One of you go get the dog treats, and you fling a couple dog treats into the corner. The dog will get the treats, and you run into the house. Wow. No joke. So this thing's sitting on the couch. It was like a Doberman slobber coming up, full teeth. Not like, hey, I'm kind of nice, but you're in my... This thing was ready to take off an arm. So I go in, and I'm up against the wall like this, scaling across this room, and this thing is like a second away from jumping off that couch. And I grab a handful of those treats and I just toss them into the corner, and we go dashing into the house. So when people make comments like, you get paid too much, I'm like, work night and weekends and be a dog wrangler. In
Can I
addition,
throw out a new possible slogan? The Synergy Group. We'll get rabies for you.
Exactly.
That's impressive.
It was impressive, and he didn't end up buying the house either.
And I was going to say, and in that moment, he could have not bought the house, and then you earn no income, and luckily you didn't come away with any bite marks.
Exactly.
Amazing. Great job. It's great having you guys here. I mean, like I said, tough to talk to you. Not easy to. Let's tell some people about the Synergy Group. Like, where can they find you? What's the best way to find you?
Synergy Group, synergysoldit.com is our primary website. We're a boutique firm with Compass. We have a really important smart growth model that we're on. We do brokerage, property management, development. We work with investors. We're extremely well-rounded. We're a very educated team that makes sure, again, like, we're not transactional. We are in it for the long run with our clients to make sure we're building wealth and you're making really smart decisions, particularly in a market like this. Yeah. We'll be the first to tell you don't buy. We'll be the first to tell you to rent a property versus sell a property. It's all about your financial well-being, and that resonates with our clients. It's why we're like 80% referral based. And we are looking to grow. So if that resonates with you and you're interested in learning more about our team and how we grow and opportunities that are available, let us know.
Yeah, so synergysoldit.com and at synergysoldit on Instagram.
We got to go.
Yeah.
We literally have to sprint and run. This was amazing.
Yes.
Good job.
Thank you.